uh, ALS is one of those diseases that is covered by the VA because there's a higher incidence rate with veterans, anywhere from 2 to 10 times more likely. They're finding if you're in the aviation field, that incidence rate goes up, which I was an aviation ordnanceman. I worked on F-18 fighters. Um, and after I was diagnosed, my wife, Teresa, and I um, uh, had been dating for quite a while at the time. We got married. She has 3 kids, and they're absolutely awesome. I have no kids of my own, so it was a blessing to experience. The youngest was 5 at the time, 6 at the time when we started dating. So to being around raising children and getting to have an influence on them. We started a nonprofit that's called Matt's Place Foundation that helps people with ALS in Idaho, Washington, and Montana with home accessibility issues. So we do ramps, bathroom remodels, door widenings, things like that. We also like if we have someone that's struggling to use the computer or things like that, and it's a quick fix, we help out with that also. Um, uh, we built our first home in Coeur d'Alene, and we have it's a completely accessible house that has smart home technology, interactive eye gaze and voice, and we have our second family living in that right now. The Spokane house should be ready to move into by, I'm guessing, the end of July, and families are able to live there for free and to have all the access to smart home technology and um, an accessible shower, accessible bathroom, ceiling lifts, things like that. And besides the foundation, in my spare time, I watch a lot of uh, uh, like streamers. I play video games with my voice because my arms don't work. I uh, the foundation keeps me pretty busy, and I chase the kids around. So that's about it.
Now, can you share with us kind of the time of your initial diagnosis? What were some of your symptoms and then maybe the progression of those over the years?
The 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 first thing I started noticing was my hands. I had problems with uh, uh, real small movements, zippers, buttons, like dexterity issues. Um, and a year and a half prior to having that problem, I had talked to my family doctor and told him that I was having twitching at the time, is what I called it, in my hands. It felt really funny. At the time, I was pretending like I was a college student and maybe having too much fun on the weekends and partying, and he thought that might be what it was. But a year and a half later, when the weakness started appearing, um, uh, it was from my first appointment to diagnosis was about 6 weeks, which is incredibly fast. In that time, I had all my blood work MRIs, uh, uh, EMG, 2 neurology appointments, and was diagnosed by my family doctor and then confirmed by Dr. Carlson at Rockwood in Spokane.
Mhm.
And then as far as progression, mine was mostly my left hand and right leg to start with. It When I got into the VA system, they had a feeding tube placed right away. I don't know if you guys are familiar with forced vital capacity. My lungs will never be bad. It's just all the muscles around my lungs and my diaphragm are going. So my forced vital capacity was dropping at a rate of about 4 points a month, which you know is a very quick um, um, progression. So I had a feeding tube placed and got on Riluzole, which is at the time the only medicine that showed any progress or showed any uh, um, help for the disease. And the way they describe the medicine is 1 out of 10 people it'll have long-term effects on. 8 out of 10 people will have short-term varying effects, and 1 out of 10 it won't work at all. And by the what they call your slope, Lindsay, I don't know how familiar the group is with a lot of these things, but they basically, it's super optimistic. They do a slope chart of how long you have to live based on these points and stuff. But after I started my medicine, I've basically been what you'd call flat for about 5.5 years. Um, uh, very, very slow progression. And uh, a lot of that has to do with some of the respiratory care I do. I think getting in the wheelchair early and not expending energy. There was a lot of preemptive stuff that outweighed my stubbornness to that I contribute to the longevity of me and the disease.
Mhm. Mhm. And that you can take a break anytime you need to.
What's that?
I said you can take a break speaking anytime you need to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right now, I will tell you, my I've been in a chair for almost 5.5 years.
Mhm.
I have no movement in my legs at all. I can, this is going to sound weird, move my legs because I can move my hips a little bit. So my legs kind of pump when I move my hips. I have no movement in my right elbow, right wrist. I can wiggle 2 of my fingers on my right hand, and I can do a lot of movement with my shoulders. And then on my left side, my left shoulder is better than my right shoulder. So I run a mouse ball with my thumb, and most of it's all from shoulder movement. Um, and just kind of using gravity to click buttons and things like that. I have used I do a lot of stuff with my voice on the computer. And then I do have an eye gaze computer that I stubbornly have not spent a whole lot of time with.
Can you kind of touch upon how important technology is to you?
Oh, humongous. I mean, people take for granted like just the littlest things, like audiobooks. I I have become like an avid, almost it's like an addiction. I have to put my feet up a couple times a day for because of the swelling if I sit up all day. And I listen to books during that time. Um, my goal for this year was to listen to 25, and that was to slow myself down because I've already listened to 18 this year. So if you need book recommendations, I got some great ones. I'll give you one anyways. Best uh, autobiography I've ever read is Will Smith's autobiography, and
Oh, really?
anything by Deepak Chopra
Oh, yeah.
is amazing.
Did you read
So
the Did you read Will Smith before the Oscars or after the Oscars?
before, and you can totally tell why that all happened.
Oh, really?
Yes, you
Provide some
can.
insight. That's so funny. That's
Yeah,
so funny.
but if you listen to it in audiobook, it's better because there's music, there's like you get his inflection. So I recommend that audiobook. But most of the stuff I listen to is philosophy, psychology. Always been fascinated with how the brain works and how we work as a group. And so
We're gonna have to share audiobook lists. I also love those, and if it's not audio, I don't get through it very quickly, except for the book we assigned for this class called Unsilenced. You might like it, but it's not an audiobook yet.
I I like one book leads me into another one. And there was a book, um, it's called Building a Home in Your Mind. It's a short read, and it's by uh, Sanjay. I forgot the last name, but I'll get it. And I read the first or listened to the first paragraph, and I told my wife, this book will forever change your life. So don't start it until you're ready. And it has. It really has. It
Is
is
it
one of the most.
Is it Sanjay Gupta, the doctor on CNN?
No, it's a young Arabic female, um, and she just basically started writing this book because she was um, wondered why the whole world had control over her emotions and how she felt about herself and how she took it back. And it's an amazing read, life changing. Yeah,
That sounds
for
great.
sure.
Yeah. So technology, do you think that technology has enabled you to participate in the activities that you want to?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about, because I know, and I didn't really do Teresa any justice. You mentioned your wife, but Teresa is the project manager or project manager. Is that what her title is at the Steve
Yeah.
Gleason Adaptive Technology Center that I know the students have heard me talk about? What do you think was the event or your mindset, and why did you and Teresa establish that space? Because that's a big undertaking to become a foundation in terms of raising money, and like what made you guys decide to do that?
Probably the biggest thing was almost instantly from my diagnosis, I looked at the care that the VA was going to give us, and they take such great care of veterans with ALS, MS, Parkinson's, because of service related but there's a huge disparity between that and what non-veterans get. I mean, the a non-veteran with a diagnosis, if the person lasts over 3 years, most average people you could count on them being bankrupt, and the expenses is $500,000 to three-quarters, or $250,000 to $350,000 a year in medical expenses. And Steve Gleason was doing eye gaze, and the also group had a loan locker, and we're like, well, where can we make an impact immediately? And it was bathroom remodels, ramps, bidets, and then Teresa, if any of you students haven't got a chance to meet my wife, you should take the time to go over to the ATC and meet her. She's probably one of the most incredible people you'll ever meet. Brilliant, just absolutely, like, ideas flow from her. She's like not only my muse, but a muse for everyone around her. So take the time to do that. She is amazing. But we knew that it was just going to be a huge struggle, and we knew people that were getting diagnosed. We're like, how can we help? So it was only about 2.5 weeks from the day that I was diagnosed and had told my family to the day we submitted paperwork and said we can make a difference. And Teresa's like, well, if we're gonna do this, why don't we see if we can build houses? And that's where it came from. So, we're on our second house, and we've done over 50 grants now for ramps and bathrooms and remodels throughout Montana, Idaho, and Washington. So yeah, it's been a huge success.
Yeah, it's been Teresa. Teresa is a go-getter.
She is. She's got a one of those minds that just, I wish ideas flowed through my mind like that. Yeah.
Well, this class that you're speaking to, Matt, they're seniors and they're graduating in communication sciences and speech and hearing science. So some of them are going to go on to graduate school to be speech language pathologists. Some of them are going to go into education or other health science professions. And you have dealt with a lot. Whoops, my watch is talking to me. You've dealt with a lot of healthcare professionals.
Yes, I have.
Good and bad, right?
I haven't had too many bad experiences.
Can you tell us what you value in a healthcare provider?
I think that the number one thing is you always have to advocate for yourself. You have to be your own advocate. So as a patient, if you want something done, you have to, go in like prepared to ask and not take no for an answer. And for the most part, all the doctors have met us there. Does that make sense? We haven't had any issues with doctors being like, oh, it's not time yet, or this, I like, one of the big things was getting a Hoyer lift in our house. And they're like, oh, well, you're still walking. And I'm like, yeah, but what if I fall? Then I'm not walking anymore. And they're like, well, can we justify it? And I was like, okay. I laid down on the ground. I'm like, who's going to pick me up? I'm 300 pounds, 6'2", and who's going to get me? And everyone's like, oh, okay, that justifies. So you have to advocate for yourself.
do you see for the future of Matt's Place, the foundation?
As far as the foundation goes, we're an all volunteer board. We do a golf tournament every year. We did a pub crawl for many years, 5 years, to raise money. That got a little out of hand, so we've scaled back. Now some other people are coming out and doing fundraising for us, like the Associated General Contractors is doing a boat cruise on Coeur d'Alene and things like that. So I'm hoping that as more of those things start happening, it takes a little of the pressure off myself and our board, because we are all volunteer, and I got lots of time, but everyone else is busy.
Yeah. Well, Amy, do you have any questions? Then I was going to open it up to the students for questions.
You know how I'm a little hyperverbal, so I think we should open up to the students first.
Nothing's off limits, you guys.
Don't say that.
Really,
I kind of want the pub crawl to come back, Matt.
I literally, the last year we had one of our board members, before it even started, we had people at each bar. We had 15 bars, and you'd get a stamp, and then you'd be entered to win a big prize. Well, before the first stamp was even doled out, you got sick all over the bar drinking tequila. And then I had a guy pass out, come to give me a hug, and pass out on top of me, and I couldn't breathe. And I'm like, I think we're done with this. It's getting a little over.
Yeah.
So I think this fall we might do a dinner and a comedy night, something like that, some little smaller, low key.
Yeah, that's neat. I was my husband is actually on the board for the AGC.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Where's he at? What company?
He works for Lighted Construction.
Oh yeah, great company.
Yeah, so
I've worked with all those guys in Spokane for
Okay.
years. I was at Inland Asphalt
Oh,
as
sure.
a superintendent for 10 years, and then
Okay.
North Star as a manager for another 10.
Okay. So do you know John Madden at Inland Asphalt?
Oh yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
for sure.
He's a good
Yeah.
buddy of ours. Yep.
Yeah.
And Bruce Black, all those guys. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
Bruce,
go check
the
out.
concrete slinger.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Good. All right. So students, I'm gonna go back in the gallery. What questions do you have for Matt? This is a great opportunity for you to actually ask somebody that's living with a diagnosis that you might see. You can ask about, a healthcare provider. You can ask about his personal experience, anything. You heard him, nothing's off limits.
And don't be shy.
Yeah, they're not a shy group. They're usually pretty darn talkative. Anybody? They're all looking at each other like, who's first?
I have a question.
Oh, Micah.
I was wondering if you could talk about your experience working with SLPs, and if there's anything like really great that an SLP did or something you didn't like, or just more specific information on that.
The very first SLP I worked with was at the VA in Seattle. She was awesome. I did what they call a inpatient ALS clinic, where they worked with both myself and Teresa on lifts and different equipment. But each day she brought down a different piece of equipment for me to try. And remember, it was going really fast at first. So I was doing Toby, eye gaze, all these different types of equipment, but you would leave it down a different piece each night so that I had time to practice, work with it, see what I liked. And then as technology has improved, she's kept me up to date. And when you get, I'm not discounting anyone, but it takes a really special type of person to go to the VA and work, because you aren't going to be the highest paid person in or SLP in Spokane working at the VA, but the reward is a little different with the people you get to work with and the other people that are your coworkers. Did that help at all, Micah? Did I say that right?
It's Micaiah, but yes, thank you.
Okay.
You said that, but you have an eye gaze device.
I do, yeah. Right next to me, it's a all-in-one i16.
The Tobii Dynavox i16.
Yeah,
You said you haven't used it very much. What's preventing you from practicing it?
I'm stubborn.
Hard-headed.
I just get so used to using my voice and my what I can use that it's hard for me to want to take the time or have the patience to switch over it to it and use it. Plus, it's so much smaller than my regular monitor, so
Yeah.
it's one of those things that's on the checklist to work with.
Have you voice banked?
Yes, I have.
You've done it with Brock, haven't you?
Yeah, I have,
Okay.
and that's amazing. I did the normal routine they do there, and my voice literally came back and sounded better than what it did better than I thought it would sound when they sent back. It's weird because they send back something you never read before, and you're hearing yourself read it, so it's like strange.
Yeah, I actually have just been in contact with Brock this week because we helped him put together a phrase bank.
Oh, awesome.
And they're just getting ready. It's coming out of beta and they're getting ready to publish it. And one of the reasons it's been delayed, because we did this last fall, was because of security, because he wants to make sure in terms of AI, the artificial intelligence, that there's elements of security. So it's been an interesting process if somebody has the skills and I have the ideas. It's been pretty neat. He's an interesting fellow.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, and Teresa found him on Reddit.
Yes, yeah,
which is amazing.
yeah.
I don't know. Jessica has a question that says, "What was your first reaction when you were diagnosed? How did you feel, and what did you think?"
I think I remember it like when the doctor walked in, both Teresa and I knew what they were going to say. It was very emotional to actually hear it for the first time. But I didn't give myself very long to like to wallow in it or go down the rabbit hole. I just was like, okay, you're emotional. It is what it is. Do what you always do. Just, get up the next day and live life that way, the way you always do. So for the most part, that was the extent of I've noticed that there's parts of like the grieving process that people around me go through as I go through it, but I really attribute my mental health to getting back into reading and reading the right kind of things, I do a ton of meditation. Um, uh, and that I call it whooshy time, where, if I start feeling myself get down or frustrated or something like that, I'll put my feet up and just go meditate for a half an hour or so. And so normally before the disease, um, I would have exercised, but to get through that, but you got to find different ways to do that.
What's your biggest advice for healthcare providers who work with people diagnosed with ALS?
I would say be open. Um, be open to requests. Try to work the system the best you can to get people what they're asking for. And then I would say that if it's new in the diagnosis, understand that like people aren't going to be able to take in all kinds of technical data and things like that a week after they're diagnosed, because they're still processing so much stuff that so maybe as you're talking to the patient, have something written down for the caregiver, the family, of what you're saying, so they can go back over and look at it. Because a lot of times when I've been in a room with people when they realize, hey, I'm going to lose my voice, like everything shuts down after that, like they don't hear anything, like it. So I guess just be open to the different ways of having that information in front of them.
I think we've talked about that a lot. We as speech language pathologists, our role is to tell people, educate them about augmentative and alternative communication. And best practices for us is to do that prior to them needing it, because it's
Yes.
easier to learn when you're not. But that's a hard conversation, like you said, to say you're probably going to lose your voice. We need to talk about what you're going to do when you can't speak. That's a very emotional process.
Yes. Yeah. And a lot of people will shut down right at that point when you say, oh, you're going to lose your voice, because most people, and I'm the exact opposite. I went in and said, I want everything you can get me in my house right now. And I may not need it, but when I do, I want it there. I think there's way more people that sit back and go, I'm not going to deal with this till I absolutely have to. Well, a lot of people don't realize, and this is something Teresa and I think Lindsay, you've heard us talk about it over at the ATC, but you can't just jump on an eye gaze and use it 15 hours a day. You have to build your eyes up to handle it, and using mine, I've got about a half an hour, and then I start getting fatigue. And that's why I need to practice with it. But I also, there's a lot of people that don't realize that and expect, oh, I'm going to put this communication device right in front of myself and be good to go. And it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, we talk about that as professionals, especially with the graduate students, is you should never promise something to somebody. It's just a tool. You still need to provide education and instruction on how to use the tool. It's not the golden ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah. You actually, I think, were pretty successful using the Control Bionics, the EMG switch, weren't you?
Yeah, I was able to do that.
Where was that? Where was the placement of that switch?
We did it on my right wrist
Okay.
because I can move my my two of my fingers on my right hand they just flicker,
Okay. So
and
it's picking up
right
that.
where it goes through that
Mhm,
muscle or that tendon bank there.
mhm. So
Will
on that
was able.
kind of, he said he fatigues after a while with using the communication device. Kind of get ocular fatigue because you're looking around, you're really concentrating, you're
Yeah.
having to dwell on something. And so there's a new product that combines eye gaze with EMG technology. So it's a little sensor. You guys have ever been to physical therapy? They put those EMG kind of electrodes on you, and it picks up small muscle movement. And so, like Matt said, he has probably, he can, I don't know, maybe for example, move
Yeah.
his index finger. It's picking, I'm activating muscles here. So he's scanning the screen with his eyes, but instead of having to dwell on something for a long time to select it, you're actually selecting with just, it can be just a teeny flicker of a movement too. You can set it up where it's real sensitive. And it kind of, did you feel that it was faster than just eye gaze?
Yes, I did. I think it's better than the dwell,
Mhm.
excuse me, selection for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. Maya asked, what's the most frustrating thing you've experienced after your diagnosis?
Um, for me, it's the feeling like the burden asking for help. And you have to ask for help with everything from using the bathroom to eating to, I mean, at some point you will, but that's the hardest part. So it's kind of like, what is I need this, I want this. Um, okay, uh, this is like maybe something that I don't have to ask for right now, or maybe like, oh, can I get help? Can I get my water filled up? Can I get this and this? I find myself waiting to kind of group things together so that people aren't constantly waiting on me hand and foot.
Mhm. How have your stepchildren been with this whole process?
You know, they're so resilient. They're such great kids. One of the Peyton, who's 15, brilliant little, takes after her mother. But we went down to Yellowstone, um, and we were in Gardner, Montana, and we were just driving through, and she looked out the window and she goes, "Matt, there's not a single wheelchair ramp in this town. We should write them about it." So they're like, the, I was really worried that it was going to cause emotional, uh, um, damage to the children, but they have become so resilient and like involved in our golf tournament. Uh, uh, there's not very many teenagers that can walk up to someone that's um, trached and can't move in a wheelchair and hold their hand and say, "Hey, I see you. How are you doing today?" And I think that just makes better people because everyone loves that, no matter what you're going through. Is just want to be treated like a person, you know?
You're not a diagnosis, right? You're still Matt.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm. Any other questions?
I might as well, since I
Yeah, here's
Matt, I just wrote in the chat, sounds like you're doing an amazing job raising children who are going to be are phenomenal advocates and with empathy. And I think, you say they're resilient, you've also provided them an opportunity to learn and grow. And what an amazing way you've all adapted to this and
Yeah.
growth mindset, it sounds like, as well. So thank you for sharing that. So I was curious in terms of like fatigue. So here you are talking for a while, and do you get to a point where you're like, oh, I can talk for about an hour and then I need rest? Like, what's your your cutoff?
I have my days.
Yeah, and there's good
So
days and tough days.
yeah, so basically the way that the first doctor explained it to me is as you go on in the disease, you're going to have 10 teaspoons of sugar every day, which is your energy. And you got to decide how you want to spend that energy, whether it's a shower, getting dressed. Because for me to get dressed, someone's got to pick me up, lay me on the bed. I have to have my respiratory equipment on, put all my clothes on, and then pick me back up and put me in the chair. And it's exhausting for both myself and my wife. So I became the king of blankets. I wear a blanket and it makes everyone's life easier and it's a lot less stress. It gives me energy for other things throughout the day. So today, Amy, I knew that we were going to have this meeting. So prior to the meeting, I put my feet up and rested so that my voice would be stronger for the meeting. If I have family, friends over, I do the same thing. It's just a balance of knowing, and I can automatically tell when I overdo it. I mean, like runners hit a wall. I hit a wall and I'm just like, I need my feet up, I need my mask on, and I need to take, even if it's a half an hour, a rest. And as far as voice fatigue, um, as time in the last probably 6 months, I would say later in the day, I experience more and more of it. And I actually experience a little bit more choking nowadays. And we're taking, or I'm taking Nudexta, which is actually an off-label. They think that Nudexta helps with overactive sensory gag reflex, which causes choking, and uh, like ticks, facial ticks, and things like that. So, and so far it's worked well for me. Choking's gone way down, voice has been stronger, and you can every once in a while you'll see I close my eyes to think of my next sentence. Prior to starting that was a lot longer time to grasp words or process. So that slowed down quite a bit.
Interesting, thank you. So back to the AAC device that you've done voice banking for. It sounds like you're your own Siri soon, where you just you got all these things that it's able to say for you. That's great. What's the most important things? Maybe give me the top 3 things you want to make sure this system is able to say when your voice is unable.
Probably help
Mm.
as far as like respiratory help or choking. And then probably just for my wife and the kids, I love you. Communicate those feelings. And then of course the third thing would probably be something completely inappropriate and humorous. So because that's how I am. And it's not FTD, if you guys know what that is. If you're familiar with that.
So, do you feel like you were saying that you're stubborn with your eye gaze device and you don't like to practice? Do you feel like that's because, do you think it's just your stubbornness, or do you think maybe it's the fear of like, once I start using this device, that's gonna make my voice or like these issues progress? Or is it simply just, I'm stubborn, I don't have to, I don't want to?
Probably the biggest thing is I spend I would say, the time that I spend at the computer during the day, over a half of it, I do it playing games or interacting with it. And the i16 is too small for my vision to do those things on. When it comes to emails and letters and things like that, I can easily take care of that, but I just don't have the screen space on that one to do all the things I need or I want to do right now.
Thanks. I had another question actually. So you mentioned that you said that you and your wife kind of saw the diagnosis coming. Did you prepare yourself for that? Like mentally, did you like seek out other people or like any type of counseling either from your wife or from other like loved ones? Like how did you prepare yourself for that? And like, I guess how have you coped since?
My I told Teresa, like, we were dating at the time, and I told her that I'll go to the doctor if you go on vacation with me. So we went to Cabo for her birthday, and when we got back, it's when I started the doctor. By the time we'd done the research, both of us knew what it was, because there's not a whole lot of pain associated with ALS. So everything else that's better than ALS, if you can comparatively say that, is has pain associated with it. So, as far as my mental and emotional well-being, I really didn't seek. I tried to go to a VA counselor and talk to them a little bit about it, but as we were talking about earlier, a VA counselor is different than like a faith-based counselor or something like that. They're usually someone that has served as a social worker, and they have a different attitude. So it's not like you're going to get warm fuzzies and hugs. They're like, yeah, this sucks, deal with it, we got your back, you know what I mean? And then Teresa and I had to have some really tough conversations, because we weren't married at the time. And I was like, I wouldn't blame you if you just walked away. You have 3 kids, and this isn't going to be pretty, and I wouldn't blame you at all. So we had to have some serious conversations on how our family would be. And then once we decided that we were going to be a family, how we would handle things as it came up, as far as um, uh, losing different functions and things like that. So I think you mourn like, from my perspective, you mourn like the loss of, when my legs quit working, you mourn the loss of your legs, and you're like, more likely they're not going to go again. one of the things that Teresa and I loved to do was dance. We'd go out dancing all the time. So that was really hard. But it's like, I don't know, you either, and this has been my approach through my whole life, either go, all the way positive, or you go down a dark place. And I just chose from day one that I wasn't going that route, and we're going to make the best of it.
Thank you.
It's a good mindset.
Yeah, the other one is having dealt with so many families through the foundation and friends, and just not to be too bleak, but I started going to a support group when I first was diagnosed, and in the support group there was 22 ALS patients. That was 6 years ago. I haven't been back to the support group, and mainly the reason is because there's only me and one other person left in that support group. There's new people, but there's 20 people that I became friends with, and we interacted and shared, and that I've mourned the loss of through that one group. And then you go group after group after group of we help people with the ramp, and then um, you know 6 months later you get a call to pick up the ramp. I mean, it's the reality's always in your face, so you have to just hey, it can happen to any of us, and it might not be ALS that gets you, you know what I mean? But you make the best out of each day.
Now, are you in need of volunteers?
What's that?
Do you need volunteers for MAPS Foundation? Because I know students are always looking for opportunity to volunteer in the community.
We've got a golf tournament coming up in July. Always love having people around. Even if you don't golf, it's a blast. We have all kinds of games. People have marshmallows with golf clubs, and it's a fun day. If you want to volunteer, that's great. If you want to come by and just say hi, there's a ton of cool people in the community that come out for it. I would invite all of you guys to come out and attend. Great raffle, great prizes. And then as things, we don't have like permanent like volunteer positions. It's usually based around our events.
Well, I just sent my husband the link to buy a ticket for the boat cruise.
Oh, nice.
We'll see if he listens to me. Good. Does anybody have any other questions for Matt? We really appreciate you taking your time out of the day. Speaking for an hour is probably exhausting.
Oh, not too bad. I'm
too
holding
bad.
up good.
I was gonna
Holding
say
up
maybe
good.
you should go take a nap with your cat behind you. Your cat
I will.
living the best life over there in the sun on the bed.
When I put my feet up, she'll jump up and sleep between my feet. So
You will.
yeah. So
That's pretty cute.
I got her
Well,
trained.
yes,
The only one in the house that does what I want.
yeah. She probably thinks that she trained you too, right?
That's what I
Exactly.
was thinking. My
Oh.
my cat trains me. There's no training her.
Yeah. Well, Matt, thank you again. We really, really appreciate it. I think this was next week's our last week of classes, and this was a high to hear your story, and being so candid about, the emotions associated with diagnosis and some of the things that you're dealing with. We really appreciate it.
Lindsay, one of the things that I would definitely offer
Mhm.
is, and I can speak for Teresa on this, is if you guys ever run across anything in your schooling and professional career that you have a question and you're like, oh, that bald-headed dude that was on Zoom that time might know an answer to it, don't hesitate to reach out to us and ask a question, because if we don't know the answer, we got friends all over the country, all over the world that deal with ALS, Parkinson's, and these diseases that we can get you in touch with the right people. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us, and through our website is probably the best way.
That's great. That's a wonderful offer. I'm sure they'll
Yeah.
take you up on that if they have that.
Yeah, do for sure. Don't hesitate.
And I did put a link to your website in the very beginning of the chat. So
Thank you very much.
easy for everybody to find. I am still looking for that book though you mentioned. I can't find, does it potentially have a different, I tried Building a Home in Your Mind.
Building a Home. I'm going to go away from this screen because it's in my Amazon book.
Oh,
Hold on one second.
I got all these things on how to.
I'm not really fast,
Oh,
but
no
I'm getting
worries.
there.
No
I'm
worries.
getting there.
Yeah, I looked it up and I was like, I don't think I did this right. Because I got like how to actually build a house. And I'm like, no.
Uh,
Not what you were talking about that I could tell. Have you happened to read Tyler Merritt's book, I Take My Coffee Black?
no, I haven't.
Excellent audiobook.
I will add it.
And also great because, like you said, Will Smith's voice, like to hear the author's voice is so, it just makes it.
Oh, a book on Tupac.
There is a few books that I've come across that I either get into them or get to the point where I just buy like a dozen of them and give them out to family and friends,
Mm-hmm.
because when you find that those really impactful ones,
Mm-hmm.
you
Agreed.
gotta, let me see here. Sorry, like I said, I'm not the fastest. And it usually would be on my wife's nightstand, but she's took it to Seattle with her.
Of course,
So I gotta look.
if it's
Audible.
too much
There it
right
is.
now, I could. Okay, you found it.
Yeah, let me see. Oh. Are you guys big Brene Brown? Oh yes. Brene Brown's wonderful. Her new one's great.
Atlas of the Heart.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could be in a big book club together, Matt.
The other one is the Magic Strings of Frankie Presto. That is a little bit different book, but for the life of me, I can't get it to pull up.
No
How about
worries.
if I send you an email?
That sounds good. I could make sure Lindsay gives me your email, or I will send you my email.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
Deal. Because you got me very excited about that book.
it is amazing.
And I'm like, I'm not finding it.